Hey, good morning. Thanks everyone for joining. It's wonderful to see your happy, smiling faces. First session of the conference. So today we'll be giving you an overview of Accruent's healthcare-focused application, specifically TMS Online and Data Insights. And I'm holding this microphone for the recording. So don't be nervous that you're not hearing it over the speakers in the room. So to get started, a little bit about us. The speakers here today, there's myself, Mike Myers, not that Mike Myers. I'm a senior solutions consultant with Accruent. I've been with the company now for 2 years, but for 15 years before that, I was a customer of TMS. I worked for an ISO. We had over 300 hospitals and hospital systems across the country that use TMS, so I helped support the application. So I have a long history of using TMS going way, way back to before TMS Enterprise. Also here is Rick Joslin, and I'll let him just give his qualifications when he comes up and does his part of the presentation. And then also Mark Claffey will be here as well. He's a solutions consultant like I am, and pretty much the same background. We actually worked together at the ISO together, and he has over 10 years experience using TMS out in the wild. Our agenda for today's discussion is I'll give a very brief overview about Accruent. So those of you that aren't familiar with Accruent, you'll have a little better idea of who we are and what we're trying to do. Then Mark's going to come up and give you an overview of TMS. So he'll cover on that. Rick will come up and cover some of the new features that are coming out with TMS. We have a very robust agenda and roadmap going forward on what we're trying to do. So we've had a lot of things that we got done in the past year, and he's going to go over what we're working on going forward as well. Then I'll come back up and cover Data Insights, our tool that helps with you cleaning up your data, looking up information on other models that might be in the system that you might want to know about, and help you with your capital planning needs. And then we'll wrap up with any questions that you might have. So to start off, we'll touch on a little bit about Accruent. For those of you who have used TMS in the past, you might have known it as Four Rivers. That was the company that originally had created it. Four Rivers was purchased by Accruent, which was founded in 1995. We're in a lot of countries. We're worldwide, over 10,000 customers. We're an operating company of Fortive, which is a $6.6 billion company. So we have a lot of capital behind us to get things done. And basically a little NASCAR slide here. We do have over 1,000 TMS customers, so it's well used in the marketplace. We have a lot of expertise here. Someone like Rick, who's very involved on the facility side of the industry, and then myself and Mark, and there's a lot of people who have been using in healthcare focus for their entire careers. So a lot of expertise there. And then the vision, and you can see the partner network that we have. We have a wide variety of vendors that we do work with and that we partner with. So we'll bring up Mark here to go over our CMMS solution, TMS, and I'll hand this off to Mark.
Thank you, Mike. All right, let's get into this. All right, so first off, let's just talk about the value of TMS and what our customers that are leveraging the system, what they get out of it, right? So first and foremost, it's a transformative CMMS and asset management designed exclusively for healthcare. So what does that mean? Really, all of our development and future development is focused on healthcare, and you'll see that as we go into the new features and functions. Joint Commission came out with new ways to say if a PM is in compliance or not. So, we've pivoted to include that package in TMS, and you can see, going forward, a lot of the changes that we'll make is exclusively for healthcare, right? It's a fully configurable system. I mean, there's a lot of value here. I'm not going to go into each one, but it is a fully configurable system that allows healthcare organizations to the ability to bring or consolidate, HTM, HFM, EVS into one single platform. Okay, and the way we do this is, forms can be updated. Let's say you have specific fields that are needed for HTM. You have unlimited amount of custom fields that you can create. You have the limited amount of forms that you can create, and just a way that you can segregate both industries in one platform. Okay. The main thing I want to get out of this here is the bottom here. So, you know, the reliability of TMS, it's been around for decades, right? And IDC MarketScape just did a review of all the healthcare CMMSs that just came out last year, I believe, and TMS was a leader within the industry. So the metrics below, prove that, as 292 million work orders have been created in the system. 17 million assets are currently managed within the system, and 754,000 technicians are using the system, as well as 191,000 buildings currently managed. Okay. So what's included in the TMS package, right? So just the full overview of the system here. So in the middle, we have the TMS core application. This is where your managers can run analytics, can do workload balancing, things of that nature. Your administrators will configure the system in here, and your technicians can do all of their workflow as well. On the left, we have the request portal, which was recently introduced last year. And this is your way for your service requesters, so think nursing staff, department heads, they can get requests into the system. We also introduced a ServiceNow integration last year that, if your IT shop uses ServiceNow for their ticketing system, you can now leverage that for incoming work orders into TMS. Okay, and on the left-hand side, we have TMS Sidekick. So this is the mobile solution for TMS. This is where your technicians can work and document, on the fly from their mobile device, and not worry having to go back to a workstation to update their work orders. Okay. So now, what are some of the new features that was just introduced to TMS? So we talked a little bit about the request portal and ServiceNow integration. So just to give you an example or a taste of what that looks like. So really, we try to simplify this process for the nursing staff, hospital staff, with a tile-based design where you can configure, just like the TMS core app. Everything you see here is configurable. Where maybe you have different service lines that you want to add to your tiles, you can do so, right? We talked a little bit about having HFM and HTM within one platform. Here we can go to a facilities segment. Sign in. It was sitting around. Where now, the facilities has their own service types that they offer. Okay. So one screen for your requesters to put in requests for either or. Okay. All right. We've also introduced some IT or info security and cybersecurity integrations within the assets module in TMS. So let's pull that up and show you what that.
Your overview of TMS slide was before this one, so this normally would have shown TMS.
All right, where's the info slide? I'm stuck here. All right, here we go. Where's the? So what we've introduced is fields that are core to IT and info security. This isn't the form I'm looking for here. It's enterprise. Here we are. So this is just an example of a physiological monitor where now we can, in the info security section, look at what the operating system is, what the remote access type is. Can it be accessed through VPN? On the right-hand side, we've also introduced some new grids that show, what is this asset attached to? What other clinical solutions is this asset in? So this is giving me the external identifier number that now I can easily reference. Say I go into Medigate, this asset number in Medigate is that, so now I can easily reference there. If it's connected to a network, maybe through your CMDB within your hospital, now we can see, is this asset connected? How is it connected? What the MAC address is, what the IP address is. So integrations there. We've also developed REST APIs to make connecting to and from TMS a lot easier. And this is right now we've built them out for assets and work orders. We're looking to expand on that into other modules within TMS, for example, contracts and then things to that nature. Okay. Also introduced session management. This was key for IT. They were looking for a way, the technician left and left the screen open. We need to make sure we have controls in place to close that, and that's what the session management introduces. Okay. We've also introduced the Joint Commission compliance package. So with this, we've on the PM schedules, we've introduced grace periods. So if you're familiar with Joint Commission, they give you till the month end and then some grace periods depending on the frequency of the PM. So if it's an annual PM, you get an extra 30 days to be within compliance if you finish it outside the current month and into the next month. So we have reports that will report on that, letting you know this PM is within compliance, even though it was, like I said, completed outside the original scope. We also introduced new sub statuses where your technician goes out to the piece of equipment to perform a PM. It's either in use or they couldn't locate it. Now we have a way to document those steps. So if Joint Commission comes in, they audit, you have the data backing your PMs there. And that does it for new features. We're going to have Rick come up and discuss, roadmap vision for TMS moving forward. Thank you. Yeah, what happened?
Yeah, just curious, how many people here have used TMS? Okay, so a few. So just because I had pulled the slide out for you, so it kind of threw you off a little bit. So TMS itself, just to give you an idea of some of the capabilities that it does have. So if you haven't used it before, let me bring it up. So the biggest thing that Mark had brought up initially that we want to make sure that gets across, and one of the reasons why it's been so popular for so long, and he mentioned it, is the configurability that you can go in. So whether you're an HTM department or a facilities department or EVS, you can go into the system and decide what you need. You can create custom forms, you can create custom fields on whatever you might need that's in the system. And the reason beyond its configurability is it's very intuitive for your users to be able to use. And Rick will go into the new look and feel that we're working on, giving this to update what the system can do. But one of the big things that my managers love when they were using the system is just how flexible it is, because they can go in and not only create what they need, but you can get the information that you need out of the system. If I go into our modules here, so we'll have a dashboard module, and Mark had one. So let's say you wanted to know, what do I have for outstanding service calls? You can have an idea at any time, what do you have available as far as corrective maintenance work that's there, preventive maintenance work, and you can create an unlimited amount of dashboards specific to whatever you need. So if you have multimodalities, maybe you have a hospital where you have HTM and you have facilities that are both using it, you can have a dashboard that's available to that manager where they can see all of that data in one place. But we can also have it completely separate where your HTM data that's available within the system, if you're adding new glossary items on the facility side, they won't corrupt your HCM data. You don't have to worry about someone on the facility side going and getting access to your data. From here, I can see this example has open biomed service calls. For a specific technician, I can go out there and see, hey, Bruce is out there. I can see what he has for active work. What does he have as far as what's been assigned to him in the past month, what's been completed, what's not completed. And all of these are configurable by you at the end user. So you can go out there and create any one of these dashboards that you might be using in the system. Getting data out of the system is really easy. Let's say your department heads on vacation and you're covering for them, and you get a call from a nurse and says, hey, what do I have for active work orders that are out in the system right now? Well, all I have to do is go to my query screen, and every module in TMS has the ability to go out there and query. I can just go out there and say, hey, I want everything that's active, that's in my biomed segment. I can fill in any combination of these fields to whittle down that information. I can hit execute, and I'm going to get a list of all those work orders right at my fingertips. Very powerful, and I can do this with any of the modules in the system. So you might get a new department head that says, hey, what are you currently taken care of for us for AssetWise. They can go out there, run these queries that are out in the system. The modules that are involved in TMS, much like you consider in any modern CMMS, you'll have your assets, you have your work orders. So we have our corrective. You can have different work order types. Anytime there's a drop down in TMS, you can make those specific to whatever segment or account that you're currently in. Let's see, Rick, and what other pieces? One of the big things that we did, especially on the ISO side, is take advantage of TMS's contracts module, where we could put in and say, hey, something's under contract. Here are the start and end dates. We can put all the terms and conditions in that contract, or we can just upload a PDF of the contract to that file. And then we can put alerts in the system so that when I go and open up a work order, so let's say I'm in my little dashboard module here, and I can see my Biomed open service calls. And when I go to click on one to bring it up, so this one doesn't power up, it's going to bring it up and I get this little alert. And there's different kind of alerts you can have. That's telling me, hey, this is under an active contract. So that's giving me a prompt right there. Hey, maybe I should go out and check the contract to see if I should just call in the vendor as opposed to assigning it to one of my technicians. And there's about 25 alerts that you can turn on and off with the system. And you can decide whether you want it to be a passive alert like this that just pops up, or whether you want it to be a more in your face or modal alert that when they go to save the work order, it comes up and they actually have to click off of it to say that it's done. So you could have, hey, this is under warranty. Maybe you require that there's a time entry put on the system where most of the systems maybe don't have that. You can have that pop up, come up, or an alert come up, say, hey, you're trying to save this, but it doesn't have time. So the big thing is it's really configurable to however you do business within your system. You can make things as simple or as complex as you want them to be as you're doing this. Let's see if I can get this to close out. There we go. Yep, security-wise, you set up, it's role-based, so you can decide that an administrator would have access to certain forms, certain fields, but maybe your technicians aren't, or maybe they're read-only for those technicians. TMS has the ability to make all of this configurable on your end without having to reach out to Accruent to take care of it. So when you come on, we train you how to use the system, and then you can decide exactly what makes the most sense for you for what you need out of your system. So I just wanted to give those who hadn't seen TMS kind of an overview on, why it's been so popular, why it's been around so long, and why it has such a big piece of the marketplace is that configurability and that ability for you to be able to decide what's important to you, track whatever fields that you need to track in the system. If you're not using something, pull it out, because if I have something in the system, I know when I had technicians that I was supporting, you get some technicians that say, hey, if there's a field there, I'm going to fill it in. And all of a sudden now I have 10 different people tracking data 10 different ways, and it really doesn't help to get the information out. So I just want to make sure I give that overview, and I kind of messed Mark up because I took his slide out where he prompted him to go over that. So I was like, let's make sure everyone knows what it does. So no problem, hey. On that note, I'm going to hand off to Rick, who's going to touch on what's on the roadmap for TMS going forward.
Musical microphones. Here. As with any software application, when we're talking about potential futures, we got to do this Safe Harbor Act, which basically says that I'm going to talk about a bunch of stuff. You can't hold it against me anywhere. Okay, that's kind of what it means. A little background, I've been with the industry and in this product now for 24 years. Worked with probably some of your organizations over the years, who knows. I've been fortunate enough to work with a lot of great people over the years as well. So that's kind of where my background is on here. So where is TMS going? We're continuing to focus on healthcare. All right, Accruent has products across different industries. We're not worried about taking healthcare and putting it into higher ed or retail. We're not worried about what they have to do affecting us. Our product is going to stay focused on the healthcare market, your regs, your rules, your processes, all that. That's what we're focusing on. The big ticket items, we have begun the UI rewrite. If you've used TMS, it's time for us to give it a refresh. So we're working on that. Key areas are going to be platform independence. Obviously, run it on a phone, run it on a desktop or tablet, we won't care. Safari, Firefox, pick your whatever browser you like. It's going to work on that. It's going to be more technician focused. So you log in, you're going to get kind of like a tiled dashboard for you. Here's your active work orders, your active PMs, your time charges, all this kind of stuff will be, you can touch it just what you would expect. Bringing up a list of work from that is going to kind of look like this. We're really focusing on touch based, taking advantage of the mobile platforms that are touch. So you'll get a summary overview of all your active work orders that you can drill into if you want to. Focusing first on the technician's perspective. So it's not like in 6 months the entire product's going to be rewritten. If you've ever done products, that's not going to happen. But we're focusing on most of the use of TMS day to day is by technicians, right? You're managing work orders, you're managing PMs, that kind of stuff. So we're focusing on that persona first, and then we'll roll out to assets and then resources and all that. We have a pretty aggressive plan. So the UI is a big one. Along with that is a slight rethink on mobile. We do have Sidekick, which is an iOS-based mobile platform. I will continue to say it does its job awesomely. And we could have a discussion about what its job is, but what it was designed to do, it still does very well. It allows your technicians to manage their workload, to create work orders out on the fly. They don't have to be tethered onto a Wi-Fi network. If they're in a space or off-site and there's no Wi-Fi coverage, they can still do their work, okay? What it's not designed to do is to manage an inflow of work. So if you're a director and you want to see all the work orders and play with them all, no, that's what the desktop's for, right? The Sidekick is geared for the technician experience. So that's going to continue. There'll be improvements to that. We're also looking at a whole new mobile platform as well. And the rewrite of the product is going to be in a tech stack called React. Anyways, it's one of those that you can look at on the desktop. It'll be like this. If I look at it on a tablet, it'll go like this. If I look at it on my phone, it'll go like this. Okay. So you'll have multiple ways of introducing mobility into your work team. Okay. So the UI is a big one. With the mobile rewrites, like I said, we're still going to rewrite, come up with new mobiles. There will be an iOS and an Android specific. So you'll find them in the Play Store or the App Store, and you'll be able to download them. And they will be, I call them Wi-Fi sensitive. So they'll monitor the Wi-Fi connection, and if it's connected, it'll be live. If it's not, it'll cache it. That's kind of where we're going with that. But we have to do a new one because, again, we want to do a whole new UI experience inside of the mobile specific platform. We did mention REST. TMS has had APIs forever, right? They're SOAP based. Everyone goes, SOAP, but they're tried and true. They've been around for 20 years. We have, you saw the list of a lot of the partners that we partner with. Many of them have consumed the SOAP over the years, and they have integrations that work, tried and true. Everything in the product right now is covered by SOAP. So if you want to do a purchasing integration with Lawson, we don't have the REST APIs right now, but we've got tried and true integrations through SOAP for that. So you kind of see where I'm going. REST, we have to create. So work orders and assets, they're out there, they're ready. You can consume those. So if you want to take GE, for example, import work orders into TMS, not a problem. We can do it through REST. We can do it through SOAP. We will expand those into where it makes sense. I say it that way because how many of you do utilities in TMS? Yeah. So why create REST APIs for utilities when I've already got them in SOAP? Okay. So definitely assets, work orders, purchasing makes sense. Resource management makes sense. So we'll continue to expand REST. Eventually it'll get 100% coverage. What's in the queue? What do we got in the skunk works, so to speak? I'll go over to that one. Really looking at, the 2-year, 3-year, 5-year plan in healthcare, right? Cybersecurity is becoming more and more and more ingrained into the day-to-day operation of what you're doing. cybersecurity organizations are learning more and more about what they can get, all right, what that data stream looks like. The industry is also getting more conducive to non-traditional maintenance. So not 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, but oh, when X happens, then let's do it. So we're talking condition-based maintenance. So a lot of what we're gearing towards is leaning towards that process of more deep ingrained into, grabbing data out of cybersecurity feeds and kicking off condition-based events, right? Implementing standards, working with the bodies around to make sure that the industry standard data points are in there. You can't do AEM without specific data points that you can measure, right? So we got to be able to do that. Expanding meter-based, model-based stuff, and working with some manufacturers to get more ingrained with them. These are the areas that we see downstream that we're already working on getting into the software. And everything we do in the core app now will get rolled into the rewrite and available in the new UI as well. So we've got a pretty aggressive 2-year, 3-year plan. Lots of things are already in the works. The release that's going to be coming out in the next 2 months has some new features with, again, regulatory focused. If you do a repair on a piece of equipment, maybe there's an electrical safety check that should be done every time you touch that piece of equipment. TMS should be smart enough to just throw that procedure on the work order, right? Okay, well, that's part of it, right? Oh, I got 3 of them. Okay, we'll do 3 procedures. I don't care. You'll be able to do these, set up these default functions by multiple values so that TMS is smart enough to get into the hands of your tech exactly what they need to do and eliminate them having to fish for it, find it, maybe find the wrong one, that kind of stuff. Expanding meter capabilities, as I mentioned, condition-based maintenance is a big one. Partnerships with Baxter, Medigate, the standard companies out there for cybersecurity, medical testing devices. I don't care what you use to test your equipment. We want to make sure that you can take those results and put them in the software and keep into a centralized repository of asset history. So those are some of the big areas that we're really focusing on in the next few years for TMS. Okay. And this is kind of actually where we're at right now. And I keep this up because for my development team, I don't want to lose any of it, right? At the end of the game, we still need to be able to do everything we can do now and work with everybody we work with now. Because if I take one piece out, then you lose capabilities. So, TMS can pretty much do anything that you need to do inside of your EOC and in regards to equipment maintenance and equipment management. And we're gonna, the game plan is make sure that at the end of the day, it's all still there for you. Okay. And I think that's it for me. Short and sweet.
All right, so before I get into data insights, which is CMMS agnostic, so whatever CMMS you're using, you'll be able to use data insights. Just wanted to see, are there any questions on TMS, the CMMS, where TMS is going? Yes. Sure. Yeah. So and this is nice. It touches on one of the aspects. So obviously, one of the big things that you want to do with any of your CMMSs is take care of your equipment. So the way that we do this within TMS is we want to be able to help you whether you're doing the OEM or whether you have an AEM OEM program as well. So there's different ways that you can do that. So we'll start off. Let's go is on the procedure. So we have our procedure, which is what has to get done, those the checklist or the steps that we had said. So we have a procedure, and then you can take that procedure and add it to a PM schedule, which is what is this work getting done on, at what frequency, what pieces of equipment, and when's the next time it should generate, and then we'll bring up a PM work order. So to show you what that looks like in the system, let's say if I go to my procedures here, just like I showed you with the query module on how we could look anything up, if I know the procedure number, we could always put that in. For here, as an example, I'm just going to type in, let's say this is an infusion pump. So I'll just put in pump, use my wildcards, hit execute. Hard to type with a microphone in your hand. it'll give me a list of any procedures that match this. So it'll give you an example of what one of these looks like. So when I pull one of these up, we'll have exactly what this is, what the estimated hours are. We work with everyone from very small shops to multi-hospital systems. So we make it as flexible as possible. So you can we still have places that print things out on paper. So for them, we have to have what we have is this instructions box where you can just take all of the steps that are involved. And if you want to do it as simple as possible and just spit it out on a piece of paper, you can handle it this way. You can even put any meter readings that you want to take in here, and you can then move that to the comments in the work order and just type in what the replies are. That's the quick and dirty, easy way, not how I would recommend getting things done, but we have to be able to support multiple ways of doing things. The other way that I would recommend doing things within TMS is using something called sub-procedures. That's where we're taking each one of those steps that are in there. And this would also work if you had like a med tester or any testing devices that use a checklist. Each one of those steps would be its own checklist. So if I open up one of these, you can see we have different types. So we have yes, no readings, choice list. So these you would set up individually. So if I pull one up, you can see for each one, you can put down exactly what text you want to show. And if this was like an old med tester one, it would be what would display on the med tester. What instructions, is this required? Is there a default value that you want with this? And then you can even build in logic behind it that says, hey, if they answer yes on this one, great. If they answer no, now I want a follow-up one. So maybe there's, hey, maybe something that you were testing gas and how many pounds are in there. Maybe there's a leakage somewhere. That's more on the facility side. But if that happened, hey, if we found a leak, now I want these other steps to go there. Now I got to check for leaks and try to repair that. So you can build that logic into the system. So that's how we can get those steps of what we want on that procedure done. You can set up procedures that are OEM, that are AEM. Typically what I did when I was in the field was I would specifically note if something was an AEM procedure or not. So when someone was looking it up, they'd know. Yes. Yep. Yep. That's right here. It's called a range data reading. So what I can do here is when I open up this one, this is looking for the microamps, and then I can put in ranges that I'm looking for. So it could just be greater, minus, and then you can set up TMS to, if it's outside the range, to automatically fail that PM and create a corrective maintenance work order to address the issue. What was that? Yeah, you can set it up. So you can turn that on or off. But so if you fail multiple times, Rick, does that create 3 of right now?
It's a new CM for each failure is the way it's designed to do right now. In talks around that, it was often the same person doesn't take care of the same issue. So we made it that way. That can be probably adjusted pretty easily.
Yep.
But right now it's designed so that each failure would create one.
Is there a way to create a profile on it for each like technician? Like put down like the 5 most common use like pieces of test equipment in there, so have a drop down bar.
Rick, you might have where.
Use the contacts on the assets. You can create a contact, which would it's an automatic filter that you check it and just get the list.
Yep.
Yes, it should be contacts.
So I had a question. You know how you mentioned that the checklist and the procedures are tied in, you just do a search?
Mhm.
My question was, you have multiple devices with the same make and model. You pretty much use the same generic checklist, which
Right.
is tied to it. And then comes the PM load balancing, right? How many work orders you
Mhm.
have for that,
Correct.
So how does that like work basically?
Well, okay. So I'll start with the procedure type. So we have that generic one, or this procedure is for this make model that we're going to have out there. So then it would come up. The next thing that we would have to do is set up the PM schedule, so we can get to that. I could do a lookup under schedules. We have PMs and PEs, so we can even do planned events and schedule those as well. The nice thing that I like about TMS when I was a customer is this little favorites. Every page has a favorite. So I'm going to cheat and just go to one of my PM schedules in here for this infusion pump. So if you have a report that you're using, or you have a piece of equipment that's being a dog and having a lot of issues with it, you can always save that as a favorite, so it's really easy to get to. Within this, I can put down my defaults that are going to be on the work order. What assets is this going to be on? So if it's for a specific type, I could do an asset group that says, hey, anything that matches this criteria, it's this manufacturer model, I want to assign this PM to. When's the next time it's due? What frequency is it at? We can put just about every frequency except seasonal, I think. Seasonal gets a little weird, but I could probably think of a way to get around it. But just about every frequency that you can think of that you would want to have is in there. We do have meter-based as well, or a combination. So if it was an automobile and you wanted to do every 3 months or every 5,000 miles, you could set that up as well within the system. Under procedures and assignments, this is where I can go in and say what procedure is getting run. So now I know what it is. And then I can pre-assign so that when the PMs are generated, who they would go out to. I can even build in exceptions for it. Now on the load balancing side, Rick, we were just talking about this last night a little bit.
Yeah, there's a couple ways you can do that. You can do it by the scheduled date. A lot of customers they'll balance by department. So ICU, everything, regardless of asset type, happens in this month, that month, that month. You can do it that way. TMS generates them automatically, so then you can distribute them by your tech, workload by tech, so to speak. We have forecasting, so if you want to look at what it would be over, say, month by month, next 12 months, you can look and find your spikes, like each quarter, each 6 months, and you can balance them out, move them around. Once they're set, they stay there until you adjust them, right? So you have the ability to adjust due dates if you need to, or maybe something depot repair, put an exception in for a couple of months so it doesn't generate, and then when it comes back, you can get it back one cycle.
Do you guys have sorry. So we were talking about maintenance schedules. Do you have, like some lab equipment requires like failure based PM? So a PM unless something breaks.
Yeah, PM on failure. Yeah, we it's one of the types. It's on demand is what we call it. So you create the schedule, you assign one or multiple procedures, and then you only generate it when you need like that on failure. So you can
So
do that.
it wouldn't auto generate it. You could repair.
It's configurable that way, but it doesn't do it out of the box.
Yep. And then just to show you what the work order looks like behind the system. So it would look like any other type of work order we have. And again, you can decide what these drop downs look like. But basically, if it's a PM, I would go into my procedures. Then I could click on this little box right here, and it would bring me up with all of those prompts that we just had, where we can go out there and run answers on. And then other things that I'll just touch on, with TMS, we do have a lot of mass edit tools. So if you have like a lot of PMs that you want to close out, you can go out there and say, hey, we just closed out 100 bed PMs. And they all passed and they were all fine. We didn't have any meter readings we had to take on it. I can go out there using a mass edit and close out 100 PMs using one piece of dialogue. So it makes it a lot quicker for you to be able to do things in the system. We also have a new tool called Quick Convert that allows for you to do mass imports into the system, into any of the major modules from Excel or any kind of comma separated field. But one of the newest things there is that you can also export your inventory to Excel right now for assets. So you can export your asset inventory to Excel, make your changes in Excel, and then re-import all those into TMS, so you're not going out and making a bunch of onesie and twosie edits within the system, which can take a while. So I'm going to cut off the questions there for TMS so I can show you data insights, but I'm here all weekend. Just I have cards and everything. So if you want to pull me aside, I have my laptop with you. I'll gladly give you one-on-one time, or you can always give me a call after the session and I can give you a call and answer any questions you might have there. So to wrap up, we're going to go into data insights. And I mentioned a few minutes ago that this is agnostic. We are working on getting some integration into TMS, but whatever your system is, so whatever your CMMS is, you can use data insights. So what is data insights, Mike? Good question. So the three main benefits we get here, I love the first one as a former ISO person, improving your data. When I work with an ISO, we get new hospitals all the time in, and their data is a mess. I'm sure just if you've taken a look at your data, you've probably seen the same model called 5 different things in your own system. So just think of doing that with 300 more systems out there. So it can help you improve your data, and I'll show you how we can make that happen. The next one is prioritizing your equipment replacement. So based on different variables within the system, we'll take a look at your scrubbed inventory and show you which equipment should you start thinking about replacing, whether it's based on where it is on its life cycle, where it is as far as the number of corrective maintenance work orders that it's had, what the current cost of service ratio is, or maybe there's been equipment recalls or end of life on that device. So we'll show you how this can help you get all that information. And then when you decide that you do want to replace the equipment, we're going to help you select the best equipment, and I'll show you where you can, where all that comes in and ties in. So how'd this come about? We went over before about how many different systems are using our software. We have over 290 million work orders that are from TMS. So if we have all this data, what can we do with it? Well, what we were able to do is our big data team took all that data, anonymized it so that it didn't have any specific information from where it came from. And we took, based on the 11 million asset records, we broke it all down. We standardized the data. So now you can look at specific models and manufacturer combinations of equipment to find out, hey, what's the life cycle on this? What's the average failure? What parts, what are the top 10 part failures and when do they happen? How often do they happen over the life cycle? Or I'm thinking of replacing equipment. What other similar devices are out there on the market that we can take a look at? A big thing right now is standardization. So instead of having the same type of equipment, but from different manufacturer models, if you can standardize that across your board, your training is easier, your information that you're getting out of the system is easier. And when you're purchasing equipment or purchasing services on that equipment, you can get much better deals if you're standardized across the board. So data insights will give you more, no pun intended, more insight into what other opportunities are out there when you're looking to replace equipment. So the first thing we'll look at is improving your data. So I had mentioned that what we do is we get an import from or an export from your system. So whatever it is, whether it's TMS or any of the other competing softwares that's out there, and we have some smart scrubbing that can take place. So we're going to do some scrubbing of your data, standardize what you gave us for your manufacturer model, your category names, and we're going to give you suggestions back on how you can improve that and standardize that. And then we'll take that and compare it against what's in data insights to give you suggestions on how you can improve your data within your system, but we'll also give you some missing fields that you might have in your field, like what's the original cost? Bringing in new hospitals before, anytime we brought a new one in, 90% of the time, they didn't have their original cost for the equipment, which then makes it a little more difficult when it comes time for capital replacement to go out there and decide, does it make sense cost-wise to replace it or not? And then useful life, instead of just going with what AHA has listed, which is really just what the manufacturer is telling you, we took those 290 million work orders and we're like, no, this device, the manufacturer says you can get 5 years out of it, but in the real world, we're seeing maybe they're getting 3, maybe they're getting 20 out of it. So you get a better idea of what your equipment useful life could be. So this is an example of what the data standardization report is, and the rest of the time we'll spend in the actual app. But I'm sure everyone who's used the system or any system has seen this before, where you have the same model in there listed many different ways, which then if you're trying to consolidate or get any information on how you're doing as far as what it costs you for that piece of equipment and any failures that you're having on it, it makes it very difficult. So we're going to give you a standardization report that's going to come out and say, hey, you have the same model listed a lot of different ways. You should change them all to, and we'll give you some suggestions on what you should change it to. And then the same thing with the category and subcategory of equipment. On the data enrichment report, this is where we're going to tell you, hey, this is what you had for a price. This is what we recommend you should have in there as an original cost based off of what we're seeing across the board. And the same thing with useful life. And the best way to see it, I think, is right within the application. So let's dive in and we'll show it to you. So this is the live data insights that we have. It is a SaaS application, so we host it on our system. We would take your data, import it in. I'm going to start taking a look at the model lookup, and this is where I can look up any model that I want. So for an example here, I like to use a Cure Fusion because there's so many of them out there. And then I can get very specific on what I'm looking for. So I'm going to use an 8015. So when I hit enter on here, I get my nice overview. Where possible, we'll have a photo of what the piece of equipment is, some recommended nomenclatures that are out there, useful links that are out there, like if there's any FDA recall information. If I click on that, it's going to bring me right to the FDA recall site where I can see any recalls that might be relevant to this piece of equipment. You can see what percentage of active models. So out of this infusion pump control unit, 29% of them are this model. So you can see how widespread is this across all the systems. We can get some other models that are similar to it that we can all link to and click to and see the information on. There's a good ID. You can see right now there's almost 163,000 models that went into devices that went into all the data that I'm going to be showing you in a second. And it's in use in almost 40% of the hospitals. One new feature that we've added in is end of life support. So if I click here, if there are any end of life letters that were sent out on this piece of equipment, we have scanned copies of those letters so that those are available to you within the system as well. If I go to the reliability, or what I like to call the Rotten Tomatoes score, we have scoring based on this model on how it is. You can see the average failures that you can expect on that device each year, what the mean time between failures are. We'll even give you what the most common PM schedules are, and then a nice dot graph that shows you the corrective maintenance work orders in relation to how often the PMs get done on that piece of equipment. On the life cycle, this can really come in handy when you're deciding, should I decide to try to sweat out a piece of equipment over a few years? So let's say for this, we're saying, hey, for this Care Fusion, we have 20 of them in the hospital. They're all 8 years old. I want to know, can we get another 2 years out of this? Well, I can look at this right here and say, all right, at 8 years, 73% of them are still active out of all of what we've seen from all that data. Well, in 2 years, that's going to go down to 45%. So about almost half of what's currently active will no longer be active. So it gives you better decisions on when it comes to equipment replacement on can this survive going another 2 years. And then price-wise, we'll break out what the average price is that places pay for this. We have some anonymized purchase data here, so you can look at other similar annual spends to yours and see what are they paying for this piece of equipment. So if you get a quote, you can make sure that it's in line to what other similar situations are paying for it. We'll break down labor across corrective and PM maintenance by year. So as you might expect, as the equipment gets older, it's going to take longer to do some of these things on it for both corrective and PM maintenance. But similarly, on the material side, you'll see that there's a spike in year 3. And if you're not used to this piece of equipment, you might worry that that's going to continue exponentially going up. But based off of what everyone else's data is showing you, you can see from there it pretty much stabilizes throughout the life until it gets very old. So it gives you a better idea of what you can expect going forward. It also has a top 10 part failures and what that part is, how often it breaks during the life cycle, and what the average cost is of that part. And then we get up to the comparison. So now if you're thinking of replacing the equipment, now you can go out, you can do a manual comparison, so you can pick 2 that you want to see the differences on. But basically all that information that we just saw, we now have other devices that are similar to it, where you can see that Rotten Tomato score that I had mentioned, that on what they're getting, how many hospitals are using this, what's the average maintenance cost and cost of service ratio for this device. So a lot of information is available to you. And any of these grids that you see, you can export out to Excel. We have a couple of other nice features. One, if you have someone in the hospital system who you want to share this with who doesn't have availability to this, you can share it with them. You can download it, and it takes all that information that we just saw, and it creates a nice, it's right here, I downloaded one ahead of time. It consolidates all of this into a nice PDF that you can now forward to your capital planning team to show them, hey, this is what I think we should be going to, or this is what we're using, and this is why I think we should go away from it. And then on the benchmark side of things, this is your first high-level overview of what your data looks like compared to what the industry standard is. So to just give you a really rough estimate of the mean time between failures and the life expectancy of what you're seeing at your institution versus what people are seeing out in the field. And this is a customer who allowed for us to share their data anonymously. And you can see all their equipment-wise, their stuff's breaking down 10 months earlier than what the industry average is. Knew we should have invited him. So that's the model lookup. That's really powerful when you're trying to get information. So now let's look in, all right, now let's take a deeper dive on our information or my institution's information versus the industry standards. So I'm going to go down here to this My Institution tab, and we'll start with capital planning. So we can do this on a category of equipment level, a model level, or asset specific. So I'm going to go down to the lowest level on asset, and we'll give you replacement scores for capital planning based off of, I believe there's 8 criteria involved in this. There's where's the device in its life cycle? Is it an emerging technology? Is it mainstream, or is it a mature technology that is now getting replaced? Are there any end of life letters? How many corrective maintenance work orders are we seeing against this device type? So this is a score of 0 to 6 or 1 to 6. So anything that's a 6 are things that you want to take a closer look at and start thinking about replacing for any of these various reasons that are out there. And again, any of these you can export out to Excel and do work from there. We'll show you AEM opportunities, and this is basically looking at your model of equipment that you have. What's your PM frequency versus what the industry average PM frequency is, and what's your average time on your PMs versus the industry standards, to show you areas that you might want to take a deeper dive in to decide, does this make sense to do an AEM on? When I was a customer, my favorite thing, what I would have done is just go here, go to savings, click on it, sort it, and hey, what can I get the most bang for my buck? All right, if I take a look at what the AEM standards are here, this is where I can get the most savings over time on this device type. So just gives you a little more heads up on places when you start going into an AEM. I'm sure, does everyone have an AEM program at their hospital? No, that's fine.
So we could use this data to justify if the devices could be used in AEM versus OEM.
As a piece of it, yes, because in AEM you have to use your expertise in what you see, but you can use outside sources as a part of that. So absolutely, you can use this as part of that justification. Yep. And then speaking of AEMs, on the benchmarks, when I first started showing this to people, I was showing and saying, hey, there's ways that you can improve because maybe your mean time between failure is much different than what everyone else is seeing out there. But it's also a great tool for showing that what you're doing in your hospital is the right thing, because maybe your mean time between failure is much less frequent than what the industry standard is saying. So if you go and decide to create an AEM at your system, the next year you can do a new import of the data into DI and see, hey, has that made a difference? Hey, and you can go and show it to your supervisors and say, hey, we made this AEM. This was our gut feeling. This is based off of what we have the data for. We made the change, and now our mean time between failures is below the industry standard, whereas before you made the change, it might have been above or equal to. So you can see things like the mean time between failure, the annual service costs, and what the cost of service ratio is between you and what the industry is. So again, gives you ideas of maybe if you're working within your system, everyone knows what their system does really well. But this lets you see, all right, how we compare against everyone else. And sometimes that information is hard to get. This is going to help you get that.
Like I want to check on a subset if this works and then show that as a proof and do that multiple hospitals.
That's not in there now. What I'd like to be able to do is to do a time slice to say, hey, we made a change on this date going forward. So that's one of the items that I put in for an enhancement request, to be able to put date ranges in to check those things. So right now that's not in there, but that's a really good, I'm glad that there's someone else who likes that, because I'm like, that would be helpful. There's a parts budget. What this is nice is that a lot of times with the parts budget, you might say, hey, we're going to take last year's budget, add 5% on, that's this year's parts budget. What this is doing is, since we know what your inventory is, how old it is, and what parts break down during those years on average, we can give you a very intelligent parts budget that you can now submit. And you can see here that when we get into 2024, it's going down almost 25%. And that's based off of your equipment and what we're expecting to see happen during those years. So it gives you a more intelligent starting point when you're looking at budgets. Right now, no, it's just taking into account what the parts are and how much they cost. Obviously, if you have it under contract, there's other ways to have that. And Rick and I were just talking about that yesterday. Definitely, yeah. And then on the data standardization side, so this is an example of that report. And I love this first example because one of my parts on when I was with the ISO was cleaning up the data that came in. And this 642E, you can see all the different ways that, and this was live data that was in there. My example I used to give was how many different ways can a life pack be put in the system? A lot. And most of them are misspelled and with dashes and spaces. So we take all of that and say, hey, you have this in there as Quant Diagnostics and Horizon and Drucker. They should all be Drucker Diagnostics. They should all be 642Es. And now you can start getting more power out of your information because you're standardizing what's behind there and everything's getting called the same thing. And then the same thing with the category and the subcategory. And then on the data enrichment side, this is where you can get into where you might be missing money, missing information. So anything that's orange, you don't have any data on, and there's none on this page. But if there was anything that was yellow, it tells you where there's a variance. So maybe you think that something was $10,000 and ours is saying it should only be 7. If it's plus or minus, I think 10%, it'll flag it out to you. And this can always be exported, and then you can import it into your system. Yes. Yep. Right now, you'd have to go into your CMMS. So you'd want to go into your CMMS and use their mass tools. Exactly. All CMMSs should have mass edit capabilities to do that. One of the enhancements we're looking at to make you want to come to TMS is put an option there to say, hey, I like this, make it in TMS, and then have it do the update. So that's a high-level overview of data insights and what it is now. Data insights right now is clinical or biomed information only. We are looking at expanding it towards the facility side of things, but for now it's biomed. So at least I have the right audience for that. Yes, Al. Thanks, Al. Yes, we do. We do have an ROI document that we have. In fact, Al, we're actually working on making it available online where people can just do it on their own. But yeah, for right now, if anyone's interested in this and wants either a deeper discussion, or I have it on my laptop, feel like I always have it when I go to a conference where someone will come up and go, pull up this model. And I pull it up and the reliability is like 30 something. And they're like, oh, all right, it feels so much better now because that piece of machine is always breaking down for us. So if you want to see that, or if you just want to set up a call to talk more about it, or to get an ROI document, let me know. I have a ton of cards, and or I can show it to you live here. So we're down to 1 minute. Yes? Right now, it's TMS. As far as I know, it's TMS because that's what we had. Right. Nope, this is completely separate. So I can get in touch with the AEs, but everyone I know that I used to do this, so cost-wise, it definitely pays for itself very quickly, based on the cleaning and everything else that you can get from it. So yeah, if this looks like it might be helpful at all, I highly recommend just reach out and take a closer look, because the feedback that I've been getting and the fact that I did this for 15 years, I'm like, I would have killed to have that data cleanup stuff. And Al's probably like, Mike, not the data cleanup, it's the capital replacement. And I'm like, no, it's like, right. It's that what tastes great, less filling argument. It's like, yeah, they're both great reasons to have it, but yeah, I'm a big fan of this tool, which is why I wanted to make sure that we highlighted it here. So if there's any other questions, I'm available after, and like I said, I'm here throughout the whole conference, so easy to find. Mike Myers, just like the guy in Halloween. And other than that, I appreciate everyone coming, and have a great conference.